Last night. Joining us is Republican Congressman of Florida, Byron Donalds. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about Florida first. When it was a win, 2 seats go to the Republicans. But do you see any warning in the fact that these were won by Donald Trump for 30 plus points, and suddenly we're seeing that cut down to about half with the Democrats gaining steam there? Is there a warning in that to you?
Not really. I mean, look, when you deal with special elections, a win. No. When you deal with special elections, a win is a win. First and foremost, are Democrat voters very motivated to get to the polls? Yes, they are. They're not happy with some of the things that Elon Musk is doing, going through the federal agencies, actually cleaning out the waste, fraud, and abuse that has really been damaging the federal agencies for a very long time. You see Democrat officials up here on Capitol Hill, they're upset about it. And so, yes, is the base of the Democrat Party upset? They are, and they're motivated. But when you take a step back and you look at the reality, Republican voters turned out, not to the degree of a presidential election, because that doesn't ever really occur in specials, but they turned out, and both Jimmy Patronis and Randy Fine had double-digit victories. So everything in Florida is just fine, and it's going to get better from here.
I do want you to sort of respond, because some of your Republican colleagues and some of those who are Republican analysts have said there is a lesson in this, that Democrats need to be that Republicans need to be very careful about how they go forward, especially when it comes to the economy, because if you look at this, if you were in a different district that wasn't so strongly red, there may be a problem for other Republicans seeing how much money was raised by one of the Democratic candidates and seeing how the numbers shrunk so much. You don't see that at all?
No, I don't, because again, you have the Democrats who have had no victories at all in the last couple of months, until last night in Wisconsin. In Florida, once again, you demonstrated the strength of Republican districts. Republican voters got to the polls. You have to understand a special election is far more about turnout than it is about mood, because you don't have the level of turnout across the electorate like you do in a presidential election or even in a midterm election. So if there's any lesson learned for Republicans, it's making sure that you have your get out the vote operations ready to go in these special elections. What that means for the midterms is we have to make sure we're on the ground getting our voters to the polls the way obviously the Democrats raising tens of millions of dollars for these races did for their elections, because they need something to glom onto. They tried to find a way to shift the House majority. They failed last night, and we're going to be focused on the agenda of President Trump, the same agenda that the American people voted for last November. So I would say to some of my Republican colleagues who are looking at this data and might be a little skittish, all this proves is make sure you're on the ground getting people to the polls. And here in Washington, let's actually get the agenda accomplished so that President Trump can sign it into law and so the American economy can flourish going forward into the future.
Speaking of the economy, there are a lot of jitters on Wall Street. You have seen the numbers. They have tanked several days in a row, worrying about these tariffs, and they're going down right now. The Dow futures right now is down. Do you want to see more specifics first before you assure Florida voters on how Donald Trump's decision on tariffs will impact them?
Well, listen, the president's been very clear. Today is the day he's going to come out with his package on tariff policy. What markets and what business leaders want more than anything else is just to know what it is. So in the markets, what you're really seeing is uncertainty around the fact that they don't know how the president is going to change tariff policy. Let's go back to his first administration. There was the same type of talk about tariffs. The Biden administration didn't change virtually anything associated with the tariff policy of Donald Trump. And the reason why is because what the president is making sure is that we have manufacturing in our country, that we actually have domestic supplies in our country, that people actually have high-paying jobs here in America associated with those industries, as opposed to just onshoring everything from Asia, which, if you go back to COVID-19, was not in the best interest of the United States. And then after that point, we have to move to a sound footing in our economy based upon real incentive structures and real private sector growth. We cannot continue the Obama-Biden ways of just subsidizing industries, and increasing federal spending, which destroys purchasing power for the American people and is not sustainable. The way you do that is bring industries back to the United States and allow the American people to be a part of the economic engine, as opposed to just getting cheap goods but not having the necessary jobs in return in order to sustain themselves and to have a sustainable, growing American economy. That's what we're going to accomplish. Now, the markets might be a little skittish in the interim, but over the long term, we will stabilize out and we'll have a better foundation for our economy into the future.
Are you okay, though, with people feeling pain? They voted Donald Trump in because they were tired of dealing with the inflation that was there during the Biden administration. Are you okay with your constituents feeling more pressure and more pain when it comes to the economy as these tariffs are put in place, and then the retaliatory tariffs are also put in place? Are you okay with pain being on their shoulders for a while as this all gets worked out?
Nobody wants pain for their constituents. I don't want pain for the people of Florida.
But Donald Trump said there will be some pain and disruptions.
Hold on. But you are making an assumption without knowing the details.
I'm not making the assumption. Donald Trump himself said there was pain and disruption that was going to happen.
You're making an assumption. You are making an assumption, an economic assumption right now. Let's be very clear. The real pain economically has been the massive inflation coming from bloated overspending here in Washington, D.C. That is the real pain that the American people have felt the last 4 years. What President Trump is trying to do now is bring industries back to the United States. So it's not so much pain. You might have some temporary adjustments in our economy, but that is for the growth of the American economy long term, stability and jobs over the long term for the American people and American workers. And that is actually a good way to take our economy, as opposed to following the same terrible policies of the previous administration and the Democrats writ large of just subsidizing industries and raising the debt of the United States. That is not the way that you actually build an economy. There's an old saying in finance: you can make markets jump, but you can't make them fly. And when you follow the old way, the Biden-Obama way of just subsidizing industries, yeah, you make them jump, you can make people feel good in the interim, but it's not sustainable over the long term. Donald Trump is looking at the long-term financial outlook for every American, and that's why we're starting today with Liberation Day.
Right now, the markets are lying down. They are not jumping or flying. Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much. Appreciate it. John?